If you're considering making any moves in San Francisco in 2025, this video is going to be essential viewing for you. I'm going to tell you some of the trends. And so whether or not you're going to be buying or selling, or maybe you're just keeping some tabs on the market, you'll want to watch. We're going to go over everything from interest rates. We're going to talk about the luxury market movement. We're going to talk about construction costs, commission trends. I'm also going to break down what's happening in the market right now. And I'm going to talk to you about your best path to home ownership with spending the least amount of money. I'm also going to reveal my picks for you on the best neighborhood investments where you can get the best deals in 2025. Plus, I'm also going to share some of my thoughts on the new mayor and how his politics might really shake some things up in San Francisco. To save you time and money on your home purchase or your sale in San Francisco, make sure you check back in every Monday at 5 p.m. where we'll have a brand new video up for you. Okay, my first prediction for San Francisco real estate in 2025. So I think that interest rates are gonna stay flat, and I actually think, you guys, they could go up. And I think that this is going to or could affect the price of real estate in some categories, but not in all categories. So more on that in a minute. So things have changed a lot in the last few months. So rewind to September, October, if you've been following me for a while, I was probably saying that I thought interest rates were going to go down. I think everybody thought interest rates were going to go down. There were people who were talking about maybe we could see interest rates with a 4 in front of them. Definitely things in like the low 5 seemed really, really possible. So we fast forward to today. Trump won the election, newsflash, and he's talking about putting some major policies into place that are going to fuel the economy. In the last newsletter report that the chief economist at Compass did, he showed that consumer confidence was actually up 6% since the election. It's definitely possible that not everyone in San Francisco is feeling great about Trump, but most people are feeling pretty optimistic about the economy and about their portfolios. There is no market that has benefited more than crypto. I don't know if you guys have been following this, but Bitcoin is up 50% since Trump's election. So I was looking into this, and it turns out that San Francisco is the leading city in the entire world for crypto portfolios. It's not surprising, but I just wanted to fact check it before I told you that. I'm going to tell you a little bit more about that and how it's going to impact things in a second. So let me be clear. Interest rates staying flat, we're still going to see fluctuations. I mean, the fluctuations are going to be week by week and month by month. And overall, I think that for non-conforming loans, which that's what we have in the Bay Area, those interest rates are always going to be a little bit lower than what you see on the news. And so that's really important for you to understand, because when you're looking at the news and they're talking about a 7% interest rate nationwide, that's what they're always talking about. That's for conforming rates. And so typically in San Francisco, we're looking at stuff that's about 1% less. So if they're talking about 7, we're looking at 6, because a non-conforming loan in California is anything that's below about $1.1 million, which unfortunately most of our real estate is. The median price in San Francisco is about 1.7 million. So it's hard to get anything for way less than that, though obviously there's some condos and things like that are less than that. So hang in there with me. I want to explain, because I think a lot of people don't understand mortgage rates, and it's really complicated. So I want you to understand why they're going to be either the same or a bit higher the next year. It all comes down to bond yields. So mortgage rates, despite what a lot of people think, they're actually not directly controlled by the Fed. So actually when the Fed reduced, they had 3 reductions in the fall. And when they reduced rates on the Fed side, it actually went up higher. So instead, they're heavily influenced by bond investors. And these investors, they care about 2 things: inflation. And if they're worried about rising inflation, which happens right when the economy is doing really well, then bond yields go up, and that pushes mortgage rates up. Also, recession. If investors fear recession, then they are going to buy bonds, right? Because it's safer, and that pushes yields down, and that's going to bring mortgage rates down too. So right now, what the market is telling us is that inflation is a bigger concern than recession. So the economy is looking really solid, and Trump has promised a lot of policies that could continue to make it grow, right? And when the economy grows too much, we all know really well right now what happens because we've been living this for the last several years. Everybody starts to worry about inflation, and that's going to keep the bond yields and therefore the mortgage rates higher for longer. So it is interesting to see, you guys, that we had 3 cuts. We had September on my birthday, November, and December. We had cuts. And then yet we ended 2024 higher than we started. And those were our only cuts. So obviously those things are not tied directly together. So the bottom line is if the economy stays strong, mortgage rates are going to stay higher too. And I personally think that the economy is going to stay pretty strong for 2025. If you want to talk more about like the specifics of how it affects the San Francisco market, just feel free to reach out with any of the ways below. My second prediction. So the luxury market, I think it's going to continue to increase. And I honestly think it could be really substantial. Last year, it was a really good market for luxury, especially towards the end of the year. So basically, I mean, we had a pretty booming stock market. Yes, I know there was that crazy dip in December, but the overall gain was high. And also, like, the luxury market is not hit as hard by interest rates. A lot of those people are doing cash. According to our chief market analyst, Patrick Carlisle, who I love, thank you, Patrick, for all you do for us, the number of $5 million homes in San Francisco, it was up 28% year over year. We publish these stats all the time. If you want our newsletter, I'll put a link down below. But so what he showed in his charts is that we had 115 unit sales crossing that mark. And yes, that's fewer. We had 199 in 2021, which was, one of the highest years in terms of the market, right? In 2022, which was the peak of the market, we had 120 in luxury. But it's only the 3rd time, you guys, that San Francisco has hit over 100 unit sales in the 5 million plus sales category since he started tracking in 2005. So it's a pretty good market considering all of the things for luxury specific. So that's a pretty good market, right, for luxury. It caught me off guard, and I was involved with several luxury sales in the fall, and I was just watching things like fly, often at numbers that were pretty surprising, quite frankly. So I think that the stock market's going to continue to do well. The S&P 500 last year went up 23%, and that was the 2nd year in a row that it was up over 20%. So for those people who have more money invested in the Magnificent Seven, which is your Google, Apple, Tesla, Nvidia, those people last year, you guys, they saw returns 65%. Like, that is just insane. So I do think our buyer pool, they are heavily invested in tech stocks. So they've done very, very well. Okay. And then the crypto market, like, it's going nuts. And there are people in the Bay Area who have a lot of crypto. So for me, we have a little bit of crypto. My husband went on this like tangent. I want to say it was like 2015. And that was like pretty early for crypto. There were people who were in it, I think in 2010. But I remember he invested $17,000 and it felt like so stupid and so risky, but he was super into it. It was kind of like, we were viewing it as like money that we could throw away, right? Like, what's money that if it burned up and went away, it's fine. And then that $17,000, like, I think at one point it became like 30, and we took the 17 out because we were just thinking like, okay, now like, let's let it go. And so that is now up over $250,000. So that's $17,000 in like 10 years. But imagine if that was $1 million that we put in there. It's gone up 15 times, right? So there are people who have put in that kind of money. And so you can just imagine why the luxury market is really, really doing well in San Francisco. And there's very little of it to go around. It's a very, very small segment. Like, I think if I looked at those charts, I have to double check, but I think the segment over 4 million was something like 3%. And then obviously, as you go 3% of total home sales, and as you go higher, it just becomes teeny tiny. So it's not a lot of the inventory. So when you have like additional buyers in the market looking for that, it really does put upward pressure on those homes. And obviously, you know, you want what you want and you're just like, let's go get it. So there is an ideal path for spending the least amount of money. I'm going to get into that. So stick with me here. Okay. But next, third, I think that prices in the sub-luxury, so that's below $5 billion, I think they're going to rise a little bit. I'd say like maybe 5%, but I think they're going to be somewhat flat. And I think a lot of the reason for that is that, you know, with interest rates not coming down, the people who are buying like their first home and, you know, they're taking all of the money that they have in a lot of cases and using it for their down payment. I mean, it's a lot to get in that first time. And so I think for those people, they're not going to be feeling like, you know, in all cases, not all of them are going to be feeling like they want to do these massive overbids, and there's not as much money to throw around in that market. So I think that we're not going to see the same kind of increases in that price segment as we do in the luxury segment. All right, fourth, I think inventory is going to increase a bit in the early spring. So I think in the early spring, I know we have a lot of like sub-luxury listings, you know, below 5. We have some luxury ones, but, you know, it's a smaller percentage. But really where we were seeing a lot of people calling last fall to list was actually the sub-luxury. And so, you know, consumer confidence was feeling like the market was feeling really, really good. We thought things were going down. I think we thought interest rate was going down. So I think people were just like ready to transact. And, you know, they're all in. Like the people who signed, I think they're all in. But I think as they start to hear that, like maybe things aren't going to be as hot as it seemed like they were going to be, I think that that's going to slow down a little bit. And I think the opposite is going to be true on the luxury side. Like you heard it here first in terms of what I'm telling you about the luxury category, right? But that word is going to get out on the street. And so a lot of these people who have been holding their homes and waiting for their prices, I think they're going to start to list in the later part of the spring, and you know, it's kind of dead around summer, but again in the fall. So I think we are going to see more of those luxury listings, but it's like the seed is just getting planted. So it's going to take a little bit for them to figure out where they're going to go to prep their house, all of that. So I think we're going to see some of that later spring, and I think we're going to see more of it in the fall than we typically do. So to put it all into perspective, last year we did have a little bit higher inventory. We were up 5.5% in terms of inventory and 11% in terms of sales. So 2024 was a better year for real estate than 2023. But by historic standards, you guys, the inventory it's very low. So for context, before 2020, the city routinely had quite a bit higher levels of homes for sale. But the bottom line is we're not going to see that inventory really unlocked until we start to see, I think, a few percentage points dropped in the interest rates. So I think we're probably going to want to see like definitely low 5s, even in the 4s to unlock this. So when I look at the charts in terms of like in 2010, like around those years, 2008, 2010, 2011, people were moving like every 5 to 7 years. And then you fast forward to today, for the last like 3 or 4 years, the average home ownership has changed to like 13 to 15 years. So people are holding their homes longer. And a lot of that has to do with the interest rate, right? So it's hard to move out of a 2% loan or a 3% loan and then move into a 6% loan. It's a little bit easier if it's like 1 percentage point higher. So if you want to find out exactly where the market is in your given segment, just give me a call, drop me an email, and we'll get you dialed in and save you a lot of time by talking you through your specific situation. So number 5, and maybe the most important one that I can share with you, is that buying a renovated house, I think, and this has been true for a long time, you all, it's going to be your best path for spending the least amount of money. So you heard it here first, because I do think it's going to take a minute for this to really sink in, like how bad it's gotten. Construction has always been like way more expensive than anybody ever thinks. Have you noticed, if you've been looking on the market, have you noticed how many homes come on the market with a set of plans that are like ready to build? You ever thought about why? Why did somebody like hire an architect, spend $300,000 to like design plans only to sell their home with the plans? Well, it's because when they bought that home, probably their realtor and some of their friends and maybe just, they had ideas that they were going to build it for like $500 a square foot. And then they got the bids back and they were all like $1,000 a square foot after they spent $1,000 a square foot to buy it. So it's just like so much higher than they expected in terms of building, and they just can't afford it. So they have to sell it. I mean, typically, if you're doing construction, I'd say the average is closer to $1,000 a square foot. And for high-end construction, I see people spending $2,000 plus a square foot on the regular for like really high-end construction in San Francisco, which is a lot. Now, here's the thing, is a lot of our construction labor force are immigrants, right? And if there's a mass deportation, and I recognize that this is a really big if, but if it does happen, that's going to put massive pressure on an already really, really short labor force. I don't know if you've ever tried to hire a contractor around here, but everybody's booked. Everybody's busy. When we were building our house, I think we weren't building a house, we were building an extension, but we wanted to spend like $500,000. We ended up spending more, shocker. And everyone looked at us like we were like, oh, we can't work with super poor people like you. Like, they're just like, we don't work on anything less than $1 million. Like, it was crazy. I'm like, oh, this is like every dollar I have. And yeah, it was just, it's a tough pill to swallow. So if we lose labor force, then prices are going to increase, right? Because contractors are going to have to compete for that dwindling pool. You're probably thinking, isn't San Francisco a sanctuary city? Yes. But I did some research on that with my good friend ChatGPT. And I think these projections, from what I understand, they're pretty limited. And a lot of the construction people, they don't live in San Francisco, right? They lived outside of San Francisco. So anyway, I think it's a big if whether or not Trump will actually do that, if there's a mass deportation. But if it does happen, it is not good for construction. So additionally, another thing that's going to put pressure on prices is these tariffs that Trump is talking about. And I do think he's going to do that. So those tariffs are going to put pressure on prices for building supplies, right? If you have tariffs from China and Canada, a lot of those things are going to mean that the cost of building, in addition to maybe the contractors and the workers, is going to go up. And so for sure, I just think it's going to be more expensive to do remodels. So if you can buy something that was done like a year ago or 2 years ago or 10 years ago, you're going to save money. So that's what I'm here to do for you guys, is help you think through things and help you save some money. Okay, so let's talk about where are the best opportunities to buy this year. So for my 6th prediction, I want to talk to you about some areas that I think are worth exploring. Obviously, I'm just going to gloss over these. I'm not going to go in real detail on every neighborhood, but we have more videos on that, or just give me a call and I'll walk you through all of it. But what I'm going to talk to you about with these opportunity areas is, the areas that I've seen that were a lot higher and then they've come down quite a bit, but they haven't gone back up, but they're great neighborhoods. So I do think it's like they've been there before. I really think that they're going to go back there again. So for me, it's a really safe bet for like getting into a neighborhood that has a lot of upside. So the first one I'm going to talk about is Bernal, or I guess I have to say Bernal Heights, because we had a comment from someone saying that I wasn't allowed to say just Bernal, even though Yesenia on my team grew up in Bernal Heights and she was the one saying Bernal. But nonetheless, I love it when my YouTube commenters constantly want to help me improve. So thank you. So Bernal Heights is a neighborhood that it is still on sale, you guys. And it's a great neighborhood. You've got Cortlandt Avenue is a super walkable street with a really pretty good restaurant scene. It's got a really nice sense of community there. Like, I think the people are so nice. There's a wide variety of people there, everything from, families to artists. Like, to longtime residents. Like, I just think there's a large breadth of socioeconomic classes there, which I think makes the neighborhood a lot more interesting. Transit is a little bit lacking, but you've got some good, like, kind of starter homes there, everything from like 1.5, you know, and I think like the price is like a good price in Bernal is like 2.5, 2.6, 2.8. So you can get like a good starter home there. And it feels like it's about, I would need to look, but I think it's about 10% still down from the height of where it was. So I think that's a great neighborhood to place a bet on. Another one that's similarly on sale, probably about 10% down, is the Richmond. And the Richmond was like super, super hot for a while. It hasn't quite gained that heat, but a couple of things about the Richmond. It's right by the park. Like, if you've been following me for a while, you know, I love, 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 love Golden Gate Park. Love it. Depending on where you are in the Richmond, you could be close to the beach. If you're in the outer Richmond, it's a nice flat neighborhood. So if you have young children and you want to put them on a bike, you can. The homes there, I love them. Like, the home stock is like very traditional floor plans where you have like 3 bedrooms up and, you know, a main entertainment space and then sometimes another bedroom down. It's a good price point, like anywhere between, I mean, you can get something not quite like what I just described, but you can get something there for probably 1.5. But I'd say mostly it's like 2.5, 2.2 to 3. And then, you know, some really nice homes there that are selling in the 4s. And then the Sunset. I mean, the Sunset, great neighborhood. Of the neighborhoods that I've talked about, has like the best walking district. Like, I love the 9th and Irving corridor. Great restaurants, great shopping, also near the park, and a wide variety of price points there. And the prices, they really are still on sale. So I think those are 3 great neighborhoods to get some upside in. Also, the Sunset is, you know, it's near the hospital, so lots of doctor demand there and things like that. So those would be really good neighborhoods to focus on if you're open-minded and just wanting, like, you know, a neighborhood that's a really good neighborhood that you can get some upside. I'm working for you guys on a whole video on Best Buys, so feel free to check back on Mondays for a video like that. It'll be coming soon. So number 7, so commissions. This is probably very unpopular. I'm sorry, but I personally think in San Francisco, they're going to be the same. I recognize that it may sound really self-serving, but right now we're not seeing any change in commissions. So that could change. I'm open to it changing. We are monitoring it constantly, but I will say that from what we're seeing, buyers are continuing to ask sellers to pay for their side of the commission, and sellers are paying it. I have not seen really any pushback on that from sellers. I mean, sellers, you know, some of these sellers are spending like $50,000, $100,000 to prep their house. Like, why wouldn't they spend 2.5% to allow the buyer to finance in their commission? Let's face it, you guys, the buyer was always paying the commission. I mean, come on. And in terms of, like, you know, there's all these things saying like there's going to be pressure put on commissions. I mean, I will tell you, when I have interviews with buyers and sellers, one of the things they're saying to me is, I am so busy, Ruth. Like, both of us have very demanding jobs, very little time. We really want to work with somebody who can streamline this process and get us the most money and that we don't have to worry. And I think that there is always going to be a demand for the people who are at the top of their field. And so I think that's always going to be there. Now, I will tell you, I just purchased a house in Missouri. I wanted to buy a house for my family and my sisters to get together there. That's close to my mother in case something happens to her. I lost my dad last year, so this is very much on my mind. Anyway, little small town, and my realtor was not great. I mean, I was flabbergasted. And I have to say, I have bought many properties, and I always hire a realtor because I really, really, really believe in having expert advice in the area that I'm in, and I'm happy to pay for it. I'm also very busy, and I've never had a bad experience actually with another realtor. But it got me thinking. I was like, I didn't get an escrow timeline. Like, I mean, I was just like, if I didn't know what I was doing, how in the heck would this deal close? Because it was like zero information, like, from coordinating everything from signing to the deposit, to the insurance, to the lender stuff, to making sure that the walkthrough happened, to making sure that inspections were booked, to making sure that like the things that I asked for and the negotiations were actually done. Like literally nothing done without me like pushing to get it done. And I really did think, what am I paying this person for? Right? Which is what I hear a lot of times, like when I'm reading these articles, like, and, consumers and buyers are saying like, my agent didn't do anything. I don't know why, I paid them. And I was just like, maybe that is largely the experience outside of San Francisco. I do think in San Francisco, most of the realtors, well, all of the ones that are successful are working their butts off. Like they are working like 24/7, delivering a really high level of service. And I think that people are happy to pay for that. So I personally think that commissions are going to, in this area, I do think the agents are going to continue to get whatever their fees are that they want. And there will be agents who, let's face it, there's 5,000 agents in San Francisco or something like that. They're not all good. They're not. But there's like 100 of them that are very good. And I do think that for those people who do their jobs really, really well, I think that there's always going to be a demand for those services. So all that to say, no, we did not drop our fees, and our fees are we've kept them the same. And so all that to say, I think that in some small towns, you could have some, I think you could really see commissions come down in certain parts of the country. But all that to say, our fees are staying the same. And in fact, we thought we toyed with raising them a bit on the buy side with this new. So I do think that you could see some pressure on some small towns and some areas where agents are not performing, or even in San Francisco, if an agent is not good, I mean, it's all negotiable, right? So you can definitely ask, but all that to say, like, no, our rates have not gone down. Okay, moving on. My 8th and last prediction is I am really betting on Daniel Lurie. I think he is going to make our city a better place, and I'm so excited. So no matter who you voted for, I think when I'm talking to San Franciscans, I think we're all super optimistic about the city change in leadership and the direction. And I am personally super, super hopeful that, listen, I'm not looking to get into a debate on politics, but I think we're all rooting for the success of San Francisco. And I think there's a ton of potential. The buyers and the residents and my clients that I'm talking to, I'm seeing more optimism than I've seen in a really long time. So he's going to put a bunch of new initiatives into place. And I think our economy is going to benefit. A couple of things that he's talking about, in case you haven't really looked into it, is he's going to be pushing hard for public safety advancements. And he's also talking about ending unsheltered homelessness within 6 months. He's talking about cleaner streets, less bureaucracy. I don't know if you guys caught it just killed me. There was a article a couple of years ago about a porta potty that they were trying to build. It's not really a porta potty, but a toilet. They did build it in the square in Noe Valley, and it was costing $1.7 million to build this toilet. And the person who wrote the article, Heather Knight, she just laid out, it was like the fees and stuff that were being done that was all for like oversight and this person to check and that person to check. Like it was mind-bogglingly stupid. So we need less bureaucracy. I mean, it is just completely out of control. Ending corruption he's focused on, and just, I think having an outsider, there's some worries to that, right? He doesn't have the experience, but like, I just think we're all rooting for him. And I think he's a smart man, and I am wishing all of us the best success in terms of getting San Francisco the city that we all know that it can be. So I'm going to end with some final thoughts for buyers, and I'm going to hit sellers in a second. I don't think there's a mad rush to buy, right? I said, I don't think we're going to see this massive appreciation, except for maybe in luxury. So it depends on which category that you're in. But what I would say is if you're getting a mortgage and you can afford a mortgage and you plan to hold it for 5 to 7 years, it's a good time to buy. In luxury, I mean, I was just thinking yesterday, these fires in LA, they are heartbreaking. And I think I can speak for every person in San Francisco has family or friends or someone in LA. It's just been like absolutely devastating. But as I was looking at this, I was like, oh my gosh, are we going to see a flood of luxury buyers coming in? Because it's going to take 3 years to rebuild those homes, like as a best case scenario for all those like really, really expensive homes that were, right on the beach. It only takes like a few dozen more people that are looking in that like 10 million and above to put pressure on those like 12 to 15 homes that sell a year. So, I do think there's a little bit more of a rush on luxury personally, but I would say on the below 5, take your time, get what you want, but I don't think there's a reason to wait either. I would not, you guys, if you're getting a mortgage, I wouldn't lock in a 30-year mortgage. I just wouldn't. The loan that I just got, I got a 10-year ARM. 10? Yeah, I got a 10-year ARM on it. My interest rate on it was actually, it was actually pretty low, 5.75. I did, have a relationship with the bank in terms of having some money there. So that brought the rate down, I think about a percentage point. But if you get a 10-year loan, the thing to understand is that you're not paying any of your principal or very, very little of it, right? So it's a good idea, like, to maybe make up the payment that you would have got if you got a 30-year loan. So let's just say a 30-year loan would have cost me like an extra like $1,000 or $2,000 a month. I could go ahead and pay that every month, but I don't have to. And then it's gonna get my principal down faster. So it just depends on your financial goals. And I'm not trying to give you financial planning advice, but that's something to consider. I definitely would not lock into a 30-year mortgage personally. And then finally, a few final thoughts for sellers. So if you have a property that hasn't appreciated as much as you want, AKA a condo most likely, and you're thinking about holding it, I do think it's really complicated. So if it is a condo, even houses have not returned to their formal glory, right? So depending on like, if we're talking to somebody who bought a single family home in the last couple of years and they're wanting to sell it, they're not going to be in the best position to make money. But I would say it will appreciate over time. But if it's a condo, I personally would sell it, probably. Again, this is like, can be a complicated conversation that I'm happy to have with you. But I own a condo, an investment property, and it has not done well. I bought it in 2017. It is not making money. It is not appreciating. And honestly, the next time that my tenant gives notice, I'm going to sell it and I'm going to take that money and I'm going to put it into the stock market because it's just doing so much better, right? I can think of a lot of things that I could do with that money where it would perform better than a condo. And I just do not think that we're going to see the amount of appreciation fast enough. And also the risks are high in terms of like tenants they have the upper hand in San Francisco, right? Landlords like basically have no rights. So that's where my head is at. So, but if you have a single family home and if you're happy with the space, meaning you have enough space, right? Then I would say keep it. If if your baby is like sleeping in the walk-in closet, I don't know that you want to keep it, but that's a conversation I'm happy to have with you. If you need more space and you are buying something more expensive, then waiting for the market to increase so that you can buy something more expensive in a hotter market. Do you hear me, you guys? It doesn't actually make any sense. I get it. Like it's painful to like not make as much as you wanted, but you're going to pay more on the next buy than you are if you were to like, if you buy and sell in the same market. If it's a little cool, you're selling when it's a little cool. Or if it's a little down, you're buying when it's a little down. If you wait till it goes hotter, if you're still staying in San Francisco and you're buying something more expensive, it just honestly, it doesn't make sense. So I think the stock market is going to continue to outperform the real estate market on the condo side for sure for the next few years, maybe even on the single family home, but it just depends on which price point, which neighborhood, all of that. So all that to say, I'm putting, if you want to buy a non-performing condo, give me a call. Happy to sell it to you. So the bottom line is everyone's situation is super different and there's all these little nuances, and I'm happy to talk to you about any of them and brainstorm with you. I don't have a hard sell. I often talk myself out of a job, or I talk my clients out of hiring me because I'm telling them like, actually, I don't think you should buy. I just had that conversation with a client today. I do not think you should buy that. We're here to do what's best for you. So anyway, reach out if you want to talk about your specific situation. For more information on neighborhoods that are a good investment, check out this video right here.